Hi, good evening, and welcome to another episode of Brown Girl Sound Off, BGSO, where we center and amplify the voices of women of color. I am Dr. Tony Woodland, and I am joined by my amazing panel, Dr. Edwina Jones, whoop, whoop, and Ms. Chantal Randolph. How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful.
Okay, you looking wonderful, sis. How are you, sis? Hi, Nafisa Carter.
Hey.
Listen, y'all are just so gorgeous. That's why I love a video podcast, because we get to see all this like Black girl magic just woo in one space. Listen, sis, you know,
right back at you.
Thank you. So this month, for the month of October, we are talking all about the power of yes and no, right? Mm-hmm. You know, last week, if you tuned in last week, by the way, if you did not, I wholeheartedly encourage you to go back, please, and watch last week's episode, because we were talking about saying yes to our fears, right? So instead of pumping the brakes and allowing our fears to stop us dead in our tracks and stop us from doing things that we want to do, that we should be doing, we talked about saying yes. So this week, we're going to continue with that theme around the power of those two words, yes and no. But today, we're going to be talking about saying no to stereotypes about women of color, right? Listen, if I could do like a perpetual eye roll on that one, I would, but then I might roll away, they won't roll back. But all seriousness, you know, because there's so many stereotypes, just way too many to even name. And, you know, one thing that I've noticed, by the way, if you are also given an eye roll, please go ahead and put your eye roll in the comments. But one thing that I've noticed, especially around social media, as we've started to leverage the power of social media to connect us around issues that we you know, share a common concern or a common interest around. I've noticed that there has been a lot of movement around women of color, especially Black women, just really telling our own stories, right? And so when I think about, you know, us telling our own stories and just the power of a first person narrative, right? Of let me tell you about me, right? I don't need you to tell me about me or tell the world about me. Let me write my own story. When I think about how powerful that is, to me, it seems like a yes and a no, right? It's like you're saying no to someone else's stories about you, but it's also us saying yes to here's who we really are. So, you know, I want us to be thinking for this episode, because we're going to be doing some sharing, by the way. I want us to be thinking about, you know, some of those stereotypes about women of color, specifically Black women, since we all identify as Black women, that we reject, that we are absolutely saying no to. And by the way, I know I want to start off with Nafisa, because our sister did not join us. She couldn't join us last week. So I definitely want to start off with you. But while we're waiting, I know Nafisa's gathering her thoughts because she's got lots to say, honey. Please be thinking about, you know, those stereotypes that you also reject, and let us know. Type in the comments whether you're watching on YouTube or in our Facebook group. By the way, if you have not joined, please go ahead and join that group if you identify as a woman of color. But we'd love to know. But Nafisa, sis, I want to start with you, honey. What is one stereotype, you know, that you reject being a Black woman?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing that came to mind was the angry Black woman. I think that is one that has always just bothered me so much. And, you know, it just gives us characteristics of just being like overbearing, you know, aggressive, and just all these negative connotations that just are untrue. And it really is upsetting, because I feel like often as Black women, and I'll speak for myself, I'm very passionate, and I feel like that can be turned into where, you know, a negative, you know, aspect where someone's like, oh, you know, she's just being over dramatic, or, you know, she's just upset or angry, like just like that just narrative, like we always just have an attitude, like we're always just upset. And yeah, that's one that I'm absolutely rejecting and that I just hate. And I feel like that just follows us everywhere, you know, regardless where we are. Like if we're in a workplace, You know, even like sometimes we're on the street and somebody will be like, what's wrong? Why you look so upset? I'm thinking, like, maybe I'm thinking about something, you know, like I'm good. I'm happy with life. I'm just in deep thought. Like, I'm not upset. I'm not angry. You know, like I said, I'm a very passionate person. Like, what I'm thinking is on my face, you know, but it doesn't mean like I'm angry, you know, or I'm aggressive. And, you know, that is absolutely a stereotype I am saying no to, for sure.
You know, I appreciate that you shared that, because I think that, you know, so many of us, you know, carry that around with us, right? Like there's this, you know, phenomenon called stereotype threat, right? And I think about how so many of us carry around this notion that, okay, I think that people are automatically going to think that I'm angry if I express myself in this way. So let me just not, right?
Yeah.
Let me just shut down, right? And so that, you know, that actually just really just threatens our abilities to show up fully in spaces, whether it's workspaces or in our relationships, romantic relationships, or even our friendships. You know, and I think about, you know, something that I noticed that I do. Here's a whole self-reflection moment that I noticed that I do. I don't do it as much now because I don't go into work every day. But when I went into work every day, I noticed that I would have like this plastered fake smile on my face, right? Now, I'm naturally a very, like, I love life. I'm bubbly most times. I love to have fun, right? But I was in an environment, and I've been in several environments in which I actually was not happy, but because I was afraid of being labeled as angry just for being disappointed, just for being hurt, just for feeling disrespected, then I'm like, let me just walk in and just smile and hi, you know, knowing daggone well, I'm not happy, right? And so I just think about all our sisters who are dealing with that as well. But thank you so much for sharing. All right, so next I would love to hear from Chantel. Chantel, what's a stereotype that you are absolutely saying no to?
I think I'm saying no to, here we go, guys, season 1, the strong Black woman. The woman who doesn't need any help, the woman who's perceived as, oh, she got it all together, she's good, you know. No, I need help. Thank you for helping me. I do need your assistance. I do need support. I do need someone to show up for me. I do need to be vulnerable. Please, can I take off my superwoman cape and just be a woman? And I think we always talk about this as a Black woman. I just think that's a label that we are automatically slapped with. And it's like, no, I am rejecting that. I am rejecting that in this season, and henceforth and forevermore. I am not.
Forevermore.
Girl, she hit that thing. That was a home run, honey.
Yes.
Yeah. So definitely, that's a huge one for me. And I think the second one I'm going to talk about is this light skin versus dark skin stereotype.
Ooh, girl, you getting into something else for next episode, honey. Woo,
okay, I'll stop right there.
Yeah,
then.
hold on
right
that.
there then. Okay.
Ooh. That's a whole word that we will be talking about later this month. And I love that you brought that. I love that you brought that up. But you know, the sad thing about what you brought up around the strong Black woman, you know, stereotype is the fact that that label is placed on our Black girls as well, right? That's actually the saddest part, that label is placed on our Black girls. And so you can look at it, there's like an umbrella. And for right now, because, you know, this is not, we are raw, you know, relatable and real, right? So I haven't scripted this out, but if I sit down and take some time, I'd have a better umbrella term, right? But there's an umbrella for me. And I think about this strong Black woman / girls label that's placed on us. And then underneath all that as well, you have like the criminalization of Black girls and Black women, right? You have the push out of Black girls and Black women out of lots of different spaces. You have the overrepresentation of Black girls in like discipline data, because maybe developmentally appropriate behaviors that they display, they shouldn't be, right? Because they should be older than that. They should be more mature than that. So when I think about like that strong Black woman, like being able to take it all, for me, it also reminds me of just like this notion that as a Black woman or a Black girl, that there's like this higher level of standard in terms of your humanity, in terms of your development, in terms of your expression. That is really dangerous. That's really, really, really dangerous. But so thank you so much for thinking about that. But that just struck a nerve with me, because it reminded me of a conversation I had with an educator today with about my Black daughter. So yeah, look, whoop, okay. Edwina, what about you? Any stereotypes? Is there one that you're absolutely rejecting?
Yes, I'm rejecting the stereotype of catty Black women. And the saying as if we can't get along with each other. And it's portrayed in media. We've seen, Real Housewives, and it's just a hot mess, and people just feel like we are all bitter and jealous of each other, and we can't get along. We don't know how to support one another. And so I'm definitely rejecting that, because that has not been my case working with other women of color. So I'm rejecting that. I am rejecting that 100%.
Absolutely. First, you know what? I want to invest in a cowbell, because that one, I want to ring the bell on that one too, because that one is one that we can even like just visually see. Just the fact that we have 4 Black women, right? And we have conversations. We don't always agree, but at the end of the day, it's always all love. I'm not going to get into this particular story, but I will say that we had a behind the scenes little hiccup, right? Less than a week ago. And that thing was handled. That thing was solved. It was resolved, right? It was talked through, misconceptions, misunderstandings, they were laid out, accountability that was taken, perspectives were seen, right, and acknowledged. And so I agree with you. That's one that just gets on my nerves, Edwina, because again, that's another one that our young Black girls also, receive at young ages, because they see that stuff too. Even we can talk about Real Housewives and that franchise, and yes, that's a whole different thing, right? And it's a guilty pleasure. But even before they even existed, that was a narrative that I picked up, that there couldn't be two Black girls at the top, or 2 Black girls who were the strong Black girls in a friend group, or whatever the case may be. And then if there were, then it had to be a fight, to see who really would rise to the top. But yeah, I definitely reject that. And one thing that I love, especially with Nafisa, you and myself, Edwina, is that we also have Black daughters. Yeah. And we show them different. By the way, if y'all ever see #compound, I'm not going to get into that either. That's our little thing. But I'm just saying, we're starting to model for them at young ages what it looks like to come together and be more than just even friends, but be family. How do we show up for each other and show love, right? Break bread together, play together. How is it that we do that? So that's one thing that I love about just, our friendship in general. So thank you all for sharing that. And again, if you're watching, no matter where you're watching, please type in the comments. I'd love to know, what are some stereotypes that you are like, not today, I'm rejecting that. Please let us know, because chances are they're ones that we haven't listed tonight, but we absolutely reject as well. So ladies, I want us to be thinking about, all the ones that we've shared so far, all the narratives that we are absolutely saying no to. And, I started out the segment talking about the fact that there's a lot of movement around us sharing and telling our own stories. And so, listen, what show was that? That was the Black, okay, this is sort of a tangent, but it's related. Did you all see like the whole like hoopla around the Black Wonder Years? Like some folks were upset about it. Did y'all see that? Yeah. Okay, right? Okay. So here's how that's related, right? So from what I understand, right, in addition to us telling our own stories, there's this push, there's this undercurrent for us to sharing multiple stories. Like, this is the only way that Black families can show up. Or, you know, we're talking about the wonder years in typical teenage or American life. These are the only faces that we can show when we're sharing those stories, right? And so a lot of people are pissed. They got upset. They got upset when, like, you know, Cinderella was redone, you know, using different cultural references and things like that, right? Because some folks, Cinderella, you know, should only be white, you know, even though it derived from, okay, we're not gonna go there. So anyway, I say all that to say, you know, thinking about those folks who are critics and who really maybe even pretend like they don't understand why it's so crucial for us to tell our own stories. I want us to just take a few moments to talk about what are the dangers of us not telling our own stories. What's at stake here? That's kind of what I want us to think about. And by the way, while we're kind of thinking about that, have any of you who are viewing seen the TED Talk by Chimamanda, The Danger of a Single Story, right? And so in her TED Talk, she actually talked about how dangerous it is for there to be like one story, you know, that is told about any, you know, person, group of people, about any phenomenon, but how dangerous that is, and how it limits our scope of what we think is even possible, right? So that's one way that I think about this question. But again, what are the dangers? What's at stake, or what's at risk when we're not the ones saying, no, all Black women aren't catty, we can't get along? You know, what's at stake there?
I'll go. Well, some of the thoughts, go ahead, Chantel.
Oh, no. I was just gonna say, I think we don't get a chance to see the full scope of our humanity as Black women. Mm-hmm. And I think that the perception and the stereotypes will continue if we don't tell our truth, you know, within our communities around the world, because there are so many different narratives and perspectives that are true, right? And so I think the danger of us not owning our stories and telling our stories is that these stereotypes that we are constantly fighting against will continue. So I think we have a mandate, you know, it's our responsibility to own our stories, to own our truths, and to share those.
She called it a mandate. Oh, okay.
I believe that. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I was basically almost going to say similar thing, but because it's important that our voices are heard, and from our perspectives, like firsthand account, to speak for ourselves, because just like you read different stories and you read, you know, different novels, if it's told from a completely different perspective, it's going to be different. It's going to be an absolutely different story because it's from somebody else's perspective or what they think happened. So I think it's important to share and, you know, sure that it's known what you feel and how you're feeling. And so there's no misconception.
I got you. I know you were breaking up.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, it's all good.
I'm sorry. I'm like, of course, today.
No worries. We heard everything you said. Edwina, did you want to add anything?
And I think about the children, you know, I think about that next generation. If we're not breaking the stereotype now, it's just like Chantel says, going to continue to be just that, a stereotype that's going to carry over to our children, to their children. And so we have to, like, it needs to stop. And the way that we do that is by sharing the truth. By, you know, letting those know that, no, this is not who I am. This is, you know, this is who I truly am. And so if we're not being vocal about it, it just continues to go forward to the next generation. So.
Can I say one more thing? And then I just feel like it's just like silencing our voice once again. So I think it's important, you know, for us to make sure we speak out so we can continue to dismantle that, as Edwina and Chantel said.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, going back to Edwina's point as well about future generations, I shared, I can't even remember, it might have been last week, it might have been on a different show or something, but I shared a conversation that I had with my son. And this conversation was probably 2 weeks ago. And I remember just, we're riding into school and, 92Q was on, we're listening to, news report or whatever. And they're talking about like, it was like a weekend of like violence, right? In Baltimore City. And the folks who were involved in it were young people. And so I remember it sparked a conversation about, well, I said, I wish, there was something I could do like these, I really want to help young people see that there is something different, right? And so the reason why I bring that up, and it goes back to what Edwina was saying, is that for a lot of our people, they're only seeing one story, right? So they're only seeing, glorified violence. They're only seeing, poverty around them. And so what happens to a group of people if they see nothing beyond their circumstances, right? What happens to us? What happens to our children? What happens to our young people when they do not see hope, when they don't see dreams, when they don't see people making it and doing it, right? And resolving conflict differently, right? And so that's kind of, what Edwina's point brought up for me was that conversation that I had with my son, who was a young person, and just thinking about the mandate, as Chantel said, we have a responsibility, right? Wherever we can, wherever we, feel comfortable to share our stories so that people, it's not to educate the other folks, right? That's not the purpose, but the purpose is to make sure that our people who are around today and who will be around tomorrow, that they know what came before them, and they know, the full scope of who we are, right? Because I'm gonna be honest, I'm the product of a whole single story, because I thought that back in the day, we were just quote unquote slaves. That's a whole different conversation, right? Right. But when we change our language and we change the conversation and talk about, first of all, they were enslaved. And second of all, they were people who rose up, who were, who resisted, who, were fearless, who, and so, but I didn't know that. I didn't learn that in school, right? And so I think about that mandate. But I really want to know from all of you who are watching at home, again, what are the dangers that you see? And as we start to wrap up, I want us to wrap up with one really quick, tidbit. What do you see as being like next steps for women of color? Like really quickly, if you can think of, a next step, thinking about the conversation we've had over the past almost half hour, what's next for us in terms of sharing our stories?
I think about sister circles. And that was a term that, I don't know if it was college, but something that I was really interested in is just to see a lot more movement where sisters are coming together to share stories, to be supportive and encouraging and moving forward.
Thank you.
And I think just continuing to just show in our actions, that we're saying no to these stereotypes, that it is not correct, that it's not true, and just continue to speak out about it and to be that example of the opposite of what they think we are.
I would say to reach across, like step outside of our comfort zones and be willing to meet new people, have new experiences, explore, right? Like learn from other people, like understand that our perception or our thoughts or our view are not the only ones that are out there. And I think it gives us a broader perspective of our sister who lives in the South, or our sister who lives in Africa, or, our sister who lives in China, you know what I mean? Like really just stepping across those lines and being willing to hear. Sorry. Being willing to hear and, engage with other people outside of our communities.
That's actually a de-biasing strategy that I share when I'm facilitating workshops around that. So thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate what each of you have already shared. Thank you so much. And thank you all for tuning in yet another week on BGSO. Hopefully you found something valuable in this conversation that was shared. And so just so that we know, we have immense power in us, right? We don't have to lie down and take it. We don't have to, just continue to walk down paths that have been paved paved for us. Yes, if it's a positive path and it's leading somewhere that we wish to go, absolutely. But what we don't have to do is to continue to, trek down walkways that don't serve us, right? That tell a different story and then lead us to different destinations other than ones that we dream of for ourselves and for our children and our children's children. So again, I hope that you tune in next week. Once again, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching in the group, share, because again, this is yet another vehicle that we use to share the stories of women of color. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your night. Bye, everyone.